4th and 6. Inside Bateman, what a big-time hit, and that'll do it. Ward delivers the blow, and the Browns are going to go to 7 and 6 in a huge win for Cleveland.
Prescott pumps, throws, intercepted. Holcomb's got it with a pass to the end zone. Holcomb still on his feet. He's in. Oh my goodness! Burrow throwing the other way. Corner. Caught. Jamar Chase. Touchdown. Connecting as Perriman taking it all the way for the win. The first time.
Welcome in, everyone, to week 15 of the Lucky Shots Game Day podcast. It's getting interesting, guys. I mean, there's so many things that kind of switched up this week in terms of rankings, where people are. The playoff picture, it's really anybody's game. There's so many teams in the hunt, and a lot of it could come down to the final week of the season. Not really any teams that are locked in to be that number one seed or anything like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If we look at last week, the Chiefs roll to their 6th win in a row. They beat the Raiders again, 48-9, moves them into 3rd place in the AFC. And, they've got, I'm pretty sure it's mostly division opponents coming up that they've already beat. They do have a game this week, Thursday night, against the Chargers, who they lost to. But that could throw a huge monkey wrench into all of the rankings if the Chargers win. So Chiefs right now, they're hot. They're getting hot at the right time. But can they go in and take down a team that already beat them this year? Then you got the Browns. They took down the Ravens 24-22 with no Lamar Jackson. Baltimore now falls to 8-5 and 4th place in the AFC. So still sitting atop their division, but now only a game up on everybody. And I'm so tired of watching teams play just stupid football, and the Ravens played very stupid football at the end of their game. You got the onside kick, which that doesn't happen, at all. You get the onside kick. All you need is about 20 yards to get into field goal range, down by 2, for Justin Tucker to kick your game-winning field goal. What do? First play, they try to throw a deep bomb. That doesn't make any sense. Short, quick passes. That's what would make sense. Second down, they try to do it again, and then the quarterback gets sacked. Then they finally throw a short, quick pass, get up to be 4th and 6, and then they run a 1-yard slant. Short, quick passes, yes, that is the way to, move the ball, but you should have done that first, second, third down. Shouldn't have gotten to a 4th down. And then when you need 6 yards or the game's over, you don't run a 1-yard slant. It was such stupid football, so infuriating to see. And they go down to the Browns. Now, that whole division, it's one game could change how the entire division plays out. You got the Cowboys, who barely hold off Washington 27-20. Dallas now improves to 9-4, and Washington falls to 6-7, the number 7 wild card spot. Dallas sticks in 4th. Dallas tried to give the game away at the very end, but were able to hold off Washington. Washington now, they're in danger of falling off and falling out of the playoffs. Dallas, they, create a little bit bigger of a lead, and now it looks like, barring any craziness, that they're going to win the division now. The Chargers take care of the Giants 37-21. That moves them into the number 5 wild card spot and up to 8-5. Again, they play the Chiefs this week, and if they beat the Chiefs, that shakes up the AFC West, shakes up the whole playoff picture. So, big game and a great win to keep themselves in that position going into this week. The 49ers outlast the Bengals 26-23 in overtime. Niners now move to 7-6. They are the number 6 wild card spot. And Cincy falls to 7-6 and out of their wild card spot. So, again, talked about with the Ravens, that division's still wide open. Cincy may not be in the wild card spot now, but a win next week and a Ravens loss, something like that could put them up into first place in the division and in one of those top 4 seeds. Then you had the Bucks top the Buffalo Bills 37-27. Bucks now up to 10-3, and because of the loss on Monday night by Arizona, they move up into that 1 seed. And then Buffalo falls to 7-6 in the number 7 wild card spot. They are in danger of falling out of the playoffs right now with just the bad stretch of games that they've had. So Buffalo really needs to get on it, or they could find themselves outside of the playoffs. And then Green Bay handles Chicago 45-30. Green Bay now moves to 10-3, second in the NFC, and stay on pace with Tampa Bay and Arizona. Speaking of Arizona, they lost to the Rams on Monday night. Again, stupid play calling. They, just like the Ravens, they got a onside kick. Cool. But earlier in the game, when they had a chance to kick a field goal and make it a 1-possession game, they didn't kick the field goal. They went for it, didn't get it. So then they put themselves in the situation of, now we need 2 possessions instead of just 1, and they had to play that way, and it just didn't work out for them. With that loss, they fall all the way from first down to third because they lost to the Packers, which puts the Packers over them, and then Tampa Bay has the tiebreakers on both of those. So, again, it's very interesting going into this week, and a lot of games that actually could mean something playoff-wise for whoever wins or loses. So we'll start on Thursday night with Kansas City and the Chargers. Chiefs, again, they're coming off their win 48-9 against the Raiders, have won 6 in a row. Now they're third in the AFC, only a game ahead of the Chargers, who won 37-21 against the Giants. They've won 2 in a row. They're now just 1 game out. The winner of this game will be atop the AFC West. And, you saw the Chiefs take care of business the last time they had a game where it was like that. But now they're going in against the Chargers. They lost to the Chargers 30-24 in their last meeting. Chiefs, again, weren't playing all that well at that time. Now they're on a 6-game win streak. Things are clicking for that offense. Their defense is playing really well. So is it going to be the same story, or is it going to be a different story? As a fan against the Chiefs, I would love to see the Chargers win. I also love Justin Herbert. It'd be great to see the Chargers win, but I still think Kansas City just has too much momentum behind them right now to lose this game. But the Chargers, there's nothing saying that they can't go out and win the game. They've already done it once. They're on, a decent streak of their own of 2 games, so could be a very interesting game, and it's on Thursday night. Thursday night games are always just crazy, so it'll be a fun one to watch. And then we have Saturday football this week. Saturday afternoon starts you out with the Raiders and the Browns. Raiders lost 48-9 against the Chiefs. They've now lost 2 in a row, and they are close to just falling completely out of the playoff picture. Barely hanging on there in the hunt area. Not looking good. 2 in a row that they've lost. Sure, one was to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are on a roll, but they just haven't looked good. And when you can't play good football, it's just not going to help you against teams that are starting to get hot. Cleveland, on the other hand, won 24-22 against Baltimore. They've won 3 of their last 5, and they are very close to being on the edge of the wild card spot. And again, they're only a game behind the Ravens, and if the Ravens and the Bengals lose and the Browns win, the Browns hop up into the top of their division and into that main top 4 seeds. So it's a big game for Cleveland, and also a big game for the Raiders. They don't want to fall out of contention to get into the playoffs. So if they lose, it almost effectively ends any chance they have of getting into the playoffs. And then Saturday night rolls around and it gives you the Patriots against the Colts. Both teams coming off of a bye. The Patriots won 14-10 against Buffalo in their last game. They've won 7 in a row, and they are number 1 in the AFC right now. Just playing good football, playing smart, effective, efficient football, and nothing flashy. A lot of ground game, and that just seems to be the recipe for success for them right now. Going up against the Colts, though, the Colts they're coming off a bye. They lost they won 31-0 against Houston. They've won 4 of their last 5, and they are sitting in the 6th spot in the AFC. That number 6 spot in the wild card. So they're also just playing really good football. Defensively, playing fantastic. Their offense is starting to kind of now support Jonathan Taylor instead of just riding Jonathan Taylor. So it's going to be a really good game to watch. Both defenses are stellar. Both offenses can, move the ball. Who's going to win the game? Honestly, I think Indy's going to win this game. I mean, the Patriots, sure, they've won 7 in a row. They're playing very good football. But Indy has just as good of a defense and an offense that has more weapons and has a better all-around group on offense. Jonathan Taylor, great running back. Carson Wentz isn't playing terrible. New England, they've got a good run game, but that's about it. I mean, Mac Jones, he's great, but can he, go in and play very good football, throwing the football against a defense like the Colts? I don't know. So I honestly think Indy goes in and gets the upset this week. But you know me, I'm wrong a lot, so it could be New England's game, but I'm going with Indy in that one. And then we move on to Sunday morning. You got the Titans versus Pittsburgh. Titans won 20-0 against Jacksonville. They're 7-3 over their last 10. Some of those wins include Buffalo, Kansas City, Indy, the Rams, and New Orleans. They're sitting at number 2 in the AFC. And news came out that they may get Derrick Henry back in time for the playoffs. That's huge. If they can continue to win and play well, there's that chance they get, that number 2 seed, and then they get Derrick Henry back, which is most of their offense, and it could happen at just the right time where they can then make a run. And it's not like they are beating slouch teams. You got Buffalo, who is now on a down skid, the Chiefs, who are on a hot streak, Indy, who's on a hot streak of their own, the Rams, who are a really good team all around, and the Saints, who just somehow win football games sometimes. And then going up against the Steelers, who just lost 36-28 against Minnesota, and who have only won once in their last 5 games. They're still in the hunt. Again, like everybody else in that division, if they win, they could move up into first place because they'd be 7-6-1, whereas everybody else has 6 or 7 losses. It's going to be harder for them even if they win to get up into the top of their division. They would need literally everyone else to lose. Then they'd have a half-game lead over everyone. But, I mean, going up against Tennessee, who, has been kind of shaky without Derrick Henry, but they've played just fine. I mean, 7-3 over their last 10, so I'm taking Tennessee in that one. Then you have Carolina against Buffalo. Panthers lost 29-21 against the Falcons. They've lost 3 in a row, and since having Cam Newton as their starter, they're 0-3. And Cam, since joining the Panthers, only has a total of 389 total yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 turnovers. People thought maybe Cam coming back, that's going to be a jump start that their offense needs. Hasn't been that. They again lost Christian McCaffrey, though, so that's just a whole mess. It's just not looking good for Carolina, and now they've got to go in against Buffalo, who lost 33-27 against Tampa in overtime, who have lost 2 in a row, so they're coming in probably pissed off, gonna play pissed off. It's going to be tough for Tennessee. So Buffalo, they started out 5-2. They've went 2-4 since, so not great. 2-4 in their last 6 games. They fall to the number 7 seed, and they're in danger of falling out of the playoffs, especially if they lose to Carolina this week. With how the teams that are just outside of the playoffs are, one of those teams winning and Buffalo losing knocks them out of the playoffs for the time being, and then they would have to fight their way back in to try to get one of those wild card spots back. It's do or die time for Buffalo to figure it out. They've got a great quarterback. They've got great receivers. They've got a good defense. They just have to put everything together and start figuring out how to win football games. Because, again, they didn't play bad against Tampa. They just barely lost. But those are games you got to win. So they're going to have to find a way to figure it out. Carolina, I think, is the perfect team to get that figured out against. So we're going with Buffalo in that one. Then we've got a big divisional game, Washington against Philly. Washington coming off their loss 27-20 against Dallas. That snaps their 4-game win streak. They fall to number 7 in the NFC, so they're still in, but they are in danger of falling out. And going up against Philly, who is just right on the outside, that could be, a big shift right there. Philly, they're coming off of a bye. They won 33-18 against the Jets in their last game. They've won 3 of their last 4, and they are sitting in the hunt. The win could push them into that wild card spot, as I said, but they're competing not only with themselves, but with Minnesota, New Orleans, Atlanta. If all 3 of those teams win and, Philly also wins, we'll have to see how that plays out. But, it's a big week for both of these teams. Washington needs to win or they fall out. Philly needs to win to get in or just keep pace with everybody else that is also in the hunt in the NFC. Who are we going to go with? Philly's offense has looked great. Washington's defense has looked just as good. I chose Washington to upset Dallas. They dang near did it. So we're going to go with Washington again. Not a whole lot of confidence on that one. But it's a game where, honestly, it's a toss-up. Then we have Houston and Jacksonville, which people are saying snooze alert. But this game actually has a little bit of significance if you look at it. Houston lost 33-13 against Seattle. They're 2-11. Jacksonville lost 20-0 against Tennessee. They're 2-11. So, what are we playing for in this game? Possibly the number one pick in the draft. Detroit is sitting at 1-11-1, which means they technically have the exact same record as Houston and Jacksonville. So, do you want to win this game? Do you want to lose this game? Do you want the number 1 pick? Do you not? And they've played before. Houston won 37-21, so Jacksonville is one of Houston's wins. Do you go out and do you play for pride, or do you go out and you don't throw the game, but you don't necessarily play your best because you might want that number 1 overall pick? Who do I think is going to do the best acting job of trying to get the number 1 pick? Probably Jacksonville. Their wins honestly have been more significant than Houston's, but Houston beat them once. Houston's playing better football. I mean, as good as a 2-11 team can play football, I guess. So I'm going to go with Houston in that one. And then maybe when I talk to Dylan on Friday, we'll see, maybe we'll make a little prop bet who's going to get the number 1 overall pick. Now we move on to Dallas and the Giants. Dallas won 27-20 against the football team. They've won 3 of their last 5, still sitting in that 4 spot in the NFC. They have a 3-game lead now over Washington and Philly. So the wheels would really have to come off for them to not win the division. Going up against the Giants, they also have Philly again, and they also have Washington again. So there's nothing saying that they're going to win their division. I believe they also have Arizona on the schedule, so that's going to be a tough game. So it's not necessarily given that they're going to win the division, but it's pretty well implied. I mean, I imagine they're going to beat the Giants this week. The Giants haven't been playing well. They're not going to have to worry about one of the teams, either Washington or Philly, after this week because one of them has to lose. So I think they're okay. And they're playing, like I said, they're playing the Giants. The Giants lost 37-21 against the Chargers. I mean, they're looking to play spoiler. I don't think it's going to happen. Dallas, I think, is going to win this game. And we'll have to see where it goes from there. Because as Vic Quick, if you guys remember Vic Quick, he was on the show a few weeks ago. As he said yesterday, if any of the teams that are in the top 3 lose and Dallas wins, there's a chance Dallas could move themselves up, and I believe he said if Dallas wins out and all of these teams that are above them lose just 1 game, Dallas would be in first place. I don't see that happening, but, there is that chance. Moving on, we're picking Dallas in that game. Moving on, we have Arizona and Detroit. Arizona just lost to the Rams 30-23. They drop down to 3rd in the NFC. It's all right, technically tied record-wise with the Packers and the Bucks. All of them sitting at 10-3. Going up against Detroit, who is lost 38-10 against Denver. And again, as I said with Houston and Jacksonville, they're in the running for the number 1 pick, and chances are they're going to stay in the running for the number 1 pick after this week. I think Arizona wins this one fairly easily. Not a lot for them to worry about. Moving on, we got the Jets against the Dolphins. Jets lost 30-9 against New Orleans. Zach Wilson, he had 235 yards, no touchdown. I mean, I think they've maybe won 1 game with Zach Wilson so far this year. It's not looking good. They're going against Miami, who's on a hot streak of their own. They're coming off of a bye. They won 20-9 against the Giants in their last game. They're on a 5-game win streak, and they're right on the bubble of being in the hunt. They still got a lot of work to do. I mean, beginning of the season really messed them up, where they win 5 games and they're still not even in the hunt. Again, there's a lot that could go down in the AFC this week that could really shift everything. There is a possibility they somehow get into a wild card spot this week. Probably not going to happen, but we will see them in the hunt after this week if they beat the Jets. From there, who knows what's going to happen, but at least they're almost there. So we're taking the Dolphins over the Jets in that game. Moving on to Sunday afternoon, we have Cincinnati against Denver. This game is very significant as well. Cincy lost 26-23 against San Francisco in overtime. They are 2-4 in their last 6. They fell out of their wild card spot. And again, I'm going to keep hounding that their division is still wide open, so something could happen. They could move up. But they're going against Denver, who won 38-10 against Detroit, have won 4 of their last 6, and they're sitting in the hunt. They're waiting for a team to drop out. If the Bills lose, I mean, there's a lot of scenarios where the Broncos can move in to one of those wild card spots if they win. What's going to happen? I mean, Cincy, they've got a great offense. They made that kind of comeback against San Francisco to force overtime. Joe Burrow played really well. Jamar Chase played really well. Denver, the tale of inconsistency, you could say. I mean, defensively, they're great. They've got a lot of weapons and a lot of talent, but offensively, it's just hard because they've got Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon pretty much carrying the entire load for the offense. Bridgewater's not doing a lot, which in turn means all the receivers aren't doing much. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati in this one. Sadly, I would love to see the Broncos win, but I think Cincinnati, they were really close against San Francisco, who right now is sitting as a playoff team in the NFC. So that's a more impressive win than beating Detroit. So I guess we'll see. And like I said, whoever wins this game could take up one of those spots in the wild card. Then you're moving on to Atlanta versus San Francisco. Both teams won last week. Atlanta won 29-21 against Carolina. They're an even 500 in their last 6 games, so just as good as they are bad. They're sitting in the hunt and could move into a wild card spot with a win because of where they're sitting. You know, if Washington goes out and loses, they're going to fall out. Do the Eagles move in? Who knows? I mean, it's everything's just so crazy right now. Atlanta, they're playing decent football. Russell Gage is really coming on for their offense. Kyle Pitts is doing decent. Cordero Patterson. But their defense, honestly, has stepped up quite a bit in the past few weeks. The games that they've won, they've really stepped up, played well. So if Atlanta honestly can just put everything together, put together a good offensive performance, put together a good defensive performance in unison, they could be a pretty decent football team. And a team that could go in and beat the 49ers. 49ers won 26-23 against Cincy. They've won 5 of their last 7, and they are number 6 in the NFC. But a loss here could move them out of the playoffs, you know. So you got San Francisco sitting there. You've got Washington sitting there. If Washington and San Francisco lose, that opens up 2 spots for other teams to move in. So, I mean, again, a game of high importance. For the Falcons, they've got a chance to finally get over the hump and get into the playoff picture and really have a chance of moving on to the postseason. San Francisco, they've been doing really well, doing their best to get back into contention, and now they're sitting at number 6. If they lose, that could be catastrophic for their season. Then we move on to Seattle against the Rams. Seattle won 33-13 against Houston. They've now finally won 2 in a row and scored 30+ in both of those games. They're currently sitting at 5-8. They're not technically in the hunt, but they aren't dead yet. I mean, if they go out, they win this game, they win a few more games. I mean, the way that the NFC is right now, it's not impossible for them to maybe only just lose 1 game and then win the rest and somehow sneak in. The chances of that happening aren't very good, especially when they have to go against the Rams this week, who are coming off that huge win against Arizona, 30-23. They finally are getting back on the horse. They've won 2 in a row, and they're sitting in the number 5 spot for the wild card. I mean, they're not going to move into first place in the division, but if they could beat Seattle, that's 1 less team that they're going to have to worry about sneaking up on them. And then they're probably going to be Atlanta's biggest fans this week. So that, you know, San Francisco kind of starts losing steam as well. We're going to go with the Rams in that one, I think. I'm not sure if I picked the last game, because I know I said Cincinnati in the Denver-Cincinnati game. I think we're going to go with San Francisco against Atlanta. It's going to be a good game, though. And it honestly could go either way. And we're going with the Rams over the Seahawks. Closing out the afternoon, you got Green Bay against Baltimore. Green Bay coming off a 45-30 win against Chicago. They've now won 2 in a row, and they have 3 straight games with 30 points or more. And that's one thing I kind of talked about before these past 3 weeks was they don't do anything flashy. They're not going to score a lot of points. They're just going to go out and do enough to win. They're still doing enough to win, and now enough to win is 30 points or more per game because their defense is getting shredded, to be honest. I mean, Chicago, an offense that hasn't really clicked all season, they gave them 30 points. And if you watch the start of that game, Chicago was running away with it to begin with. They just couldn't hold up towards the end of the game. But Green Bay sitting second in the NFC. And again, they need to win to keep on pace. So a big game for them just in terms of seeding and trying to get up into that top seed. Baltimore lost 24-22 against the Browns. They didn't have Lamar for a majority of the game. He got his ankle rolled up on. He's still going to be questionable going into this week. So Baltimore against Green Bay without a playmaker like Lamar. No matter how much he's been struggling or this offense has been struggling, they're a better offense with their star quarterback, so it's going to be a lot more difficult if he isn't in. They're sitting in 4th in the AFC, and they only have that 1-game lead over Cincy and Cleveland, and both of those teams could win. And if both those teams win and the Ravens lose, the Ravens could completely drop out of the playoffs. Out of first place, out of the wild card spot, and all the way down to in the hunt. That would be awfully catastrophic, but I think that's what's going to happen. Green Bay is just too good and playing too well, especially if they get to play against a backup quarterback. He's not going to be able to keep pace with Rodgers, Adams, Jones, Dillon, all of those guys on that offense. So we're going with Green Bay in that game. Sunday night, you got the Saints against Tampa Bay, which is a heck of a game. Going to be tough. New Orleans won the last time that they played Tampa, and they won last week against the Jets. But that's their only win in the last 6 games. They're sitting in the hunt. Again, a lot of things can change. And a win over Tampa Bay, a second win over Tampa Bay would absolutely be huge. I mean, the significance of their win, the team that they beat, isn't really going to have an effect on anything. But the fact that they win and they beat Tampa Bay, bringing Tampa down a notch, raising them up a notch, and just the momentum that they could have on their side from a win like that. Taysom Hill, playing pretty well, playing good football, not doing a ton through the air, but doing a lot on the ground. They finally have Alvin Kamara back. So, I mean, a good defense with weapons on offense that could make something happen. And the track record Tom Brady has since being in Tampa Bay against the Saints isn't good. Saints, I don't think, this is a sure lock that Tampa's going to go in and win. They've got troubles against New Orleans. Tampa, they won last week 33-27 against Buffalo in overtime. They've now won 4 in a row. They're getting hot at the exact right time, about the same time they did last year, right after the bye week, and they're sitting in first in the NFC. Again, this game has huge significance because you got to believe Green Bay's going to win, and you got to believe Arizona's going to win. If Tampa Bay loses, that drops them all the way down to 3rd instead of being in that top spot. So they need a win here, and against a team like New Orleans, who's your division foe, and a team that beat you already once this year, you got to go back in and get one. We're going to go with Tampa Bay, but again, look out, because the Saints could pull off the sweep in this game. And then we finish off the week with Monday night. You got Minnesota, who won against Pittsburgh 36-28 last week, and the Chicago Bears, who lost 45-30 against Green Bay. Minnesota's won 3 of their last 5. They are in the hunt, and they could move into a wild card spot with a win. You got, the Rams, they're pretty solidified where they're at right now, but the Niners, the football team, either one of those teams lose, Minnesota's actually going to be first up into the wild card with a win. Chicago, they've only won once in their last 8 games. They're not really in the conversation for any sort of playoff hopes, but they could play a giant spoiler. If they beat Minnesota, then Minnesota that's 2 steps backwards. Whereas if Minnesota wins, they could be in the play or into a wild card spot. So Chicago, not playing for anything really for themselves, but they are playing for some pride and a chance to keep another team out of the playoffs, especially a division foe. I think I'm going to go with Minnesota in this one. They're playing good football. Dalvin Cook had a huge game last week, so hopefully he can carry that over. Chicago does have a very good defense. Didn't look like it towards the end of the game against Green Bay, giving up 45 points, but they do have a defense that's pretty hard to run against. And, Minnesota, they always play close. So it's going to be a close game, more than likely 1 score. Where's that 1 score going to end up? Is it going to be on Chicago's sideline? Is it going to be on Minnesota's? I think it's going to be on Minnesota's, and that's who we're going with. Now we'll close out the show with a look at the playoff picture. We'll start in the AFC. You got the Patriots sitting atop the AFC with a 9-4 record. They are followed by Tennessee in the second spot at 9-4. And the Kansas City Chiefs sitting at number 3 with a 9-4 record. All 3 of those teams tied essentially for first with a 9-4 record, which is funny because the NFC is almost the same. Then you got the Ravens sitting at 8-5, but just right outside of them are the Chargers at 8-5, the Colts at 7-6, and the Bills at 7-6. All of those teams in the wild card spot. So if we take a look at the Chargers and the Chiefs. Chargers have already beat the Chiefs, so if they beat the Chiefs, they could move up into that 3rd spot, and that would be absolutely gigantic. And then, obviously the Chiefs would drop down into that number 5 spot. And then, or the Ravens, if they lose, you got the Colts and the Bills. One of those teams is obviously going to drop out of contention as well, because one of those teams has to lose this week. They're playing each other. But if the Browns, Bengals, Broncos win, all 3 of those teams would then be ahead of the Ravens, except for the Broncos, because the Ravens have the head-to-head victory there. But that's 2 teams that leapfrog them. So Ravens have to win this week. I don't think it's going to happen, and they're in risk of dropping down into the hunt, where you have the Browns, Bengals, and Broncos all sitting at 7-6, and the Steelers, who are sitting at 6-1, and then the Raiders at 6-7. Essentially, they don't have a great shot with all of the teams that are ahead of them right now. Now we move on to the NFC. You have the Buccaneers sitting in the number 1 spot with a 10-3 record. Underneath them are the Packers at 10-3 and the Cardinals at 10-3. So right there, it's just like the AFC. All top 3 teams are tied. You have the Cowboys sitting in the 4th spot at 9-4. The Rams sitting at 9-4 as well. And interesting enough, if the Rams win and the Cardinals lose, then the Rams possibly leapfrog the Cardinals. You got the Niners sitting at 7-6, Washington sitting at 6-7. But the most interesting part is that in the hunt teams right there, Eagles sitting there at 6-7, playing Washington. One of those teams has to lose, and if it's Washington, the Eagles catapult up. The Vikings have a good shot at winning this week, which if Washington loses, if the Niners lose, catapult over them. And then the Falcons and the Saints, both of them sitting at 6 and 7. So that's 4 teams right there that could leapfrog the Niners and Washington with wins this week and losses on their side. And then you have the Panthers sitting at 5 and 8, but again, they're almost like the Raiders, not necessarily out of it, but a lot of work to get back into it. And especially, they have such a tough game this week. It's going to be hard for them to keep pace. But anyway, that is it for the Lucky Shots podcast this week, week 15. Did I say week 14 earlier? I might have. It is week 15, so only, 4 more football games left for your favorite team, 4 weeks left if you follow all of them. But we're in the thick of it, and there's a lot that could go down this week. A lot of things can change, and it's exciting. And a lot of things couldn't change, who knows. But don't forget to join tomorrow. We will have the fantasy podcast, starting your fantasy playoffs, week 1 of the playoffs. That's also exciting. Exciting times going on in football right now. And then on Friday with Dylan Corbett, if you guys watched the show last week with him, he went to a couple games this week. So hopefully we have a little bit of inside the stadium footage for that, and we'll get to hear from him. So thanks for watching, everybody. Good luck on your picks.